The notion that the science on climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is a claim that has been circulating among certain groups, particularly those with conservative or evangelical backgrounds. This idea suggests that climate change is not a real phenomenon, but rather a fabricated concept used to control and manipulate people, especially Christians, into adopting certain ideologies or behaviors. However, a closer examination of the evidence and the underlying motivations behind this claim reveals that it is unfounded and misleading. Firstly, the overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change is clear. Human activities, particularly the emission of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane, are significantly contributing to the warming of the planet. This conclusion is based on decades of research by thousands of scientists from around the world, using a variety of methods and lines of evidence. The evidence includes temperature records, shrinking ice sheets, glacier retreat, sea level rise, and shifts in the distribution of plants and animals. The scientific consensus on climate change is summarized in reports by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC), which represents the combined efforts of the world's leading climate scientists. Despite this consensus, some argue that climate change is a hoax perpetuated by scientists and politicians to manipulate the public, particularly Christians. They claim that the goal of this alleged manipulation is to impose a liberal or socialist agenda, which would undermine Christian values and freedoms. However, this argument is based on a series of misconceptions and logical fallacies. For instance, the idea that scientists are engaged in a massive conspiracy to deceive the public is unfounded and implausible. Scientists, like any other professionals, are driven by a desire to understand and describe the world around us, not to manipulate the public. Furthermore, the notion that climate change is a liberal or socialist plot to undermine Christian values is a flawed argument. Climate change is a global issue that affects people of all faiths, cultures, and ideologies. Scientific consensus on climate change is based on empirical evidence, not ideology. In fact, many Christian organizations and leaders have recognized the reality of climate change and are working to address it from a faith-based perspective. For example, the Evangelical Environmental Network, the National Association of Evangelicals, and the Catholic Church have all acknowledged the importance of caring for creation and addressing climate change. It is also important to note that the Bible teaches Christians to be good stewards of the earth and to care for creation. In Genesis 1:28, God gives humans the mandate to rule over the earth, but this does not mean that we have a license to exploit and degrade the natural world. Rather, it means that we have a responsibility to manage and care for the earth in a way that is sustainable and just. Climate change is a moral and spiritual issue as it affects the most vulnerable members of society, including the poor, the elderly, and future generations. In conclusion, the claim that the science on climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is unfounded and misleading. The overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change is based on empirical evidence, not ideology. Climate change is a global issue that affects people of all faiths and backgrounds, and it is imperative that we work together to address it. As Christians, we have a moral and spiritual obligation to care for creation and to be good stewards of the earth. By acknowledging the reality of climate change and working to address it, we can fulfill our duty to God and to future generations.